Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Danielle's Damn Fancy Creations, and today we are going to be doing a Valentine themed tumbler. Today's tumbler is more of an understated Valentine tumbler instead of a in-your-face Valentine theme. I personally like understated themed tumblers. That way you can use it throughout the year and you don't have to walk around with something that says Valentine like all throughout the year, because if you're going to make these or spend money on these, you want to get your money's worth or your time's worth out of them instead of just having it sit in the cabinet for most of the year. So this way you can use it all year long and it's not going to look out of place at certain functions. Today's tumbler is going to have more of a vintage feel. We're going to be using 2 blush toned spray paints as the base, and the glitter that we're going to use is a new glitter that I offer on thedrunkflamingo.com, which is coconut snowball martini. It's a fine glitter, but it's more of an iridescent opal-y with pink and blue undertones to it, and I love this glitter. It might be one of my favorites that I offer, and as soon as it came in, I knew that I had to get it on a tumbler because I wanted to see what it looked like. We're also going to be using Coconut Cooler, which is another customer favorite, and Coconut Cooler is more of a chunky version of Coconut Snowball. So both of these glitters are going to play nicely off of each other. It's not going to have a large contrast. They're just going to kind of fade into one another from chunky to fine. And another aspect that I love on this tumbler is the textured Cricut vinyl that we're going to be using. I typically don't use Cricut products. I just feel that there are better products out there, better quality vinyl, but I really love this particular vinyl that they offer. It is a textured pack. I typically get the 3-pack from Hobby Lobby or Michael's. It has gold, champagne, and silver, and it's just something that gives your vinyl a little bit more interest when it's under epoxy, just a little bit of texture that's really nice. It also helps play with that vintage feel that I was going for with this cup. So if you guys like this video or you learned something new, please like, subscribe, and share. And if you guys are ready to see how I create this tumbler that I ended up loving, let's get started. So obviously we're always going to start with a prepped tumbler that I always spray paint white. We're going to use Satin Vintage Blush, and I am just going to spray this color along the bottom and the top and kind of leave the center white because I'm going to spray a lighter color in that area. And I'm holding my cup probably about a foot and a half away from me and just lightly spritzing it. That way you're not going to get runs or any weird things with your paint. You can always go back and add more if you need to. And if you guys don't have this color, it is so great. I love it. I use it for so many different cups. It's just really pretty vintage blush color. So I'm just checking to make sure all my little parts are covered. I had some white spots showing through a little bit. So now for the middle color, I'm going to use a lighter pink. And if you guys didn't know, trying to hold a cup and film and open a spray paint can is a little difficult. So I'm getting the lighter color opened, which is this rustic pink. So this one is a little lighter than the color that is on the cup, but it's still in that blush family, so they go really well together. And I'm just going to lightly spray this one in the center, just giving it kind of a ombre in the middle versus just top or bottom. And I know it's kind of hard to see on my video. It was definitely a rainy day when I filmed this. But you guys can see the color difference. I really like these two colors together. I was trying to show you guys the colors a little bit better. So once this spray paint dries, we're going to put the glitter on. And for this particular cup, I use the epoxy method. So I just mixed up some epoxy. You know, I typically don't measure my epoxy because I usually mix enough for at least 10 or 12 cups at a time, but this was probably around 20 milliliters. I did put more epoxy on here than you would typically use for the epoxy method because I really wanted this glitter to kind of soak in to the epoxy instead of just sitting on top. So I'm just smoothing on my epoxy. I always smooth it out when I get done applying it, which I feel helps with ridges or, you know, pulling epoxy. And then we're going to hit it with our torch. Make sure you pop all those bubbles. Since we're just using this layer to apply our glitter, it's not, you know, imperative that you get every bubble out, but it always just helps. And then I am going to apply my glitter with my tea strainer. I really like using the tea strainer to apply fine glitter because I feel like it kind of helps get more of an even coverage, especially if you don't want a ton of glitter on there. I am just kind of lightly tapping this glitter all over the cup. And I'm not just dumping it on because I don't want the glitter to be too thick. I just want a thin layer of glitter because I still want that base color to show through pretty well. So we are just going to do this all over the cup. Make sure you get your bottoms. I just kind of flick some glitter on there as the cup turns around. And then once the cup turns a few times, a few minutes, I always go back to check to make sure that there are no like pooling spots of epoxy where maybe there's too much epoxy and it soaked way too much glitter up. You can always sprinkle a little bit more glitter on there to get a little better glitter coverage. So after that epoxy cured, I applied 2 more layers of epoxy, and now it's time to sand the rims. You can do this with a Dremel or with a sanding block. Since it was a little cold outside, I decided just to do it inside. And I am just taking my sanding block, and at an angle, I just go around the cup and sand pretty well. And this will take off about 1 or 2 millimeters from the top and leave that stainless showing, which will help get a really strong bond for our next layer of epoxy and just make sure everything is sealed in really, really well. And don't be worried if you think you might not get, you know, an even edge all the way around. It's pretty hard to mess it up or get it uneven. So don't be scared about that. Just kind of take your sanding block and just hold it at an angle and go around your cup. And then I am going to go ahead and sand over the entire cup. There's not really too many bumps, but since I am going to be applying vinyl and another layer of epoxy, I just want to make sure everything is scuffed up and smoothed really, really well. And wash it with soap really well to get any oils that could be on there. And I will hold it up so you guys can see the stainless rim that is exposed. It's just a small little line of stainless. And everything is good and smooth. So now it is time to apply our vinyl. This is the textured vinyl from Cricut. I love this vinyl. It can be a pain to get up though, and my little spatula was downstairs, so I was just using my ruler to try to get this vinyl off. And when I first started applying it, I wasn't, too sure how I was going to do it, so I was just kind of applying them on the cup until I figured out how I wanted to do it. I really like the transfer tape with lines because it really helps me line up my vinyl with that top edge of the cup. So I will usually leave a couple little squares at the top so I can take one of those straight lines and line up the top rim of my tumbler so I know that my X's and O's are going to be equally spaced. And here I am still trying to figure out where I'm going to put this vinyl. I really didn't know what I was going to do with it, but I decided just to kind of stagger the X's and O's in between each other. And then I decided that I needed a new piece of transfer tape because this one was not doing as well. And this was a new piece too. That's why this vinyl, I love it, but it can be a pain to pick up. And once I got my vinyl on there, I kind of decided that I was going to space out my vinyl 2 squares. So there were 2 squares in between each X and O little vinyl piece. And you guys can see I was struggling with this vinyl. It sticks very easily, but it is hard to get up. So here's where I switched to a larger piece of vinyl. And with this larger piece, you guys can tell a little bit better how I space it out. You guys will see the 2 squares in between each little phrase. And I just lined up the top XO and put 2 squares in between and then laid my second XO. And I basically just did this all the way around the cup. And you don't have to follow the same pattern. This is just kind of how I wanted to do it. There were a couple other ways that I wanted to try, so I'm sure that you guys can come up with something super cute if you don't want to follow this exact way how I did it. I will tell you guys that each of my little XO phrase was about 1.5 inches long, and I believe it took 24 or 25 to do the entire cup. So yeah, I'm just gonna put on some music so you guys can finish watching how I apply this vinyl. So adding this vinyl is probably the most time-consuming part of the entire cup, but now that all the vinyl is applied, we are ready to put it back on our turner and add the Opal Burst. So we are going to apply epoxy just like normal. I apply a decent amount of epoxy because I want to make sure that all this vinyl is going to be covered and no little vinyl parts are going to be sticking through. So make sure you get your bottoms as well. And then we are going to hit it with our torch. Make sure we pop all of those bubbles. If you guys do not have the torch from CC DIY, I highly suggest it. It definitely is a game changer and much better than the tiny torch I was using before. And once all of our bubbles are popped, I am basically just going to take a little cup of my opal glitter. I am using Coconut Cooler from the Drunk Flamingo. And I am just going to sprinkle it where I think the middle is going to be. So I sprinkle a little bit of a thicker line just to get the basic shape of the glitter burst that I want. And then I will take my fingers and sprinkle a little bit of the opal glitter above where I sprinkled and below where I sprinkled, just to give it a little bit of an ombre effect. And I really like how this is turning out. I moved my light so you guys could really see the colors of it, and it was turning out really good. And you can also go around and pat down any chunky glitter pieces you may see sticking up. And once that has dried, we are going to apply another coat of epoxy. And this is just like a normal coat because we are covering our chunky opal that we sprinkled. So we're just going to go around the cup with our regular coat of epoxy and then hit it with a torch. I usually do 2 extra coats. I always want to make sure that everything on my cup is completely covered. Glitter, vinyl, everything. Just so there are no issues down the road. And once you get these last 2 coats of epoxy on, then your cup will be finished. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I really love how this cup turned out. The understated Valentine, the vintage blush color on it, and this glitter, the vinyl, everything. I just love how it turned out. If you like this video, please be sure to like and subscribe, and I cannot wait to see what you guys create from watching this. If you guys loved this video and learned something new, please be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Also, don't forget to check out the next tutorial coming up. As always, if you want more tips, tricks, or tutorials, be sure to check out my tutorial group on Facebook that is linked in the comments. Thanks for watching!